What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where I get higher than Norway on a globe. How about that? Hey, it's way up there north. And we tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore. Tonight, we will be bringing you a little bit more Norwegian folk tales. A little pair of them, starting with Soria Maria and
Soria Maria Castle.
Soria Maria Castle, and then moving on into
The Golden Bird.
the Golden Bird. Squawk. Yeah.
I like to imagine it was like a yellow goldfinch.
Squeak.
There you go.
Chip, chip, chip.
Yeah. So I chose Soria Maria Castle because there's a fucking movie that I really want to watch called The Ash Lad.
Oh, gotta get that Ash.
But I didn't want to fucking watch it until I knew
the actual story.
Yeah. I'm like, is it worth it?
Wow.
Today we will find out.
Yeah, today, without further ado, Kimbo, go ahead and kick it off.
All right, so this one's Soria Maria Castle. Start with that one for shiz. All right, it goes. There was once a couple who had a son, and his name was Halvor. From the time he was a small boy, he would never do anything, but just sat and raked in the ashes. His parents sent him away to learn many different trades, but Halvor would not stick to anything, for he had been away for a few days. Then he'd run away from his trade, come home, and sat down in the hearth and poked at the ashes as before. So lazy sack of shit.
Poke.
Now it happened that one day a skipper came and asked Halvor if he would like to come with him and go to sea, and see foreign parts. Yes, Halvor would like that, and it took him but a short time to get ready. How long they sailed, I haven't heard, but after a while...
I don't know. I love the honesty of the storyteller. How long it was, I couldn't verify that part.
But after a while, a terrible storm struck the ship, and when it had to abate and the sea was calm again, they didn't know where they were, and they had been driven up along the coast, unknown to them all. As it was so, still, that not even a feather was stirring. Halvor asked the skipper if he might go ashore and look around, for he would rather walk the line than lie and sleep. He would rather walk the line.
Walk the line. He's a Johnny Cash type.
And the skipper said,
Do you think you can show yourself to people? Why, you have no other clothes than the rags on your back.
But Halvor insisted, and at last he was allowed to go. But he was to come back as soon as the wind came up. So Halvor went ashore, and it was a lovely land. Everywhere he went there were great plains, with fields and meadows, but not a living soul did he see. Then the wind started blowing, but Halvor thought that he had not seen enough yet, and so he wanted to walk a little longer to see if he could find some people. After a while, he came to a wide road, which was so level that one could have rolled an egg on it. Humpty Dumpty.
Humpty Dumpty.
On this road, Halvor trudged. He trudged along, and towards the evening he saw a great castle in the distance, its windows ablaze with light. He had been walking the whole day, and as he had not had much to eat, he was now quite hungry. But the closer he came to the castle, the more frightened he became.
Ooh, spooky.
Inside the castle, a fire was burning on the hearth, and Halvor went into the kitchen, which was finer than any kitchen he had seen before.
He's going to poke at those ashes, isn't he?
The dishes were of both gold and silver, but he did not see a living soul anywhere. After he had stood a while and no one came, he went over and opened a door, and there sat a princess spinning. "Oh, dear me," she cried. "What Christian soul dares come in here? You had better go again, lest the troll eat you up, for a troll with 3 heads live here." To which the boy says,
"Oh, well, I don't mind if he has 4 more there. I'd like to see that fellow. And I won't leave because I have done no wrong, but you must give me something to eat because I am frighteningly hungry over here. Do you have any pancakes? Any flapjacks back there?
Some blueberry syrup.
Some blueberries? I'll take a nice beer if you got a beer.
When Halvor had eaten his fill, the princess told him to try to swing the big sword that hung on the wall. But no, he couldn't swing it. He couldn't even lift it once. So the princess says, "Well, then you must take a swallow from the bottle hanging beside it, for it is what the troll does when he is going out to use the sword." Why is that with every fucking Norwegian show? You know what I mean?
Strength potion.
Every time.
Every time you gotta hit that strength potion. And what's with the trolls with the multiple heads?
I don't know. It throws me off, and each time one has more than the other.
I know.
As
No
we'll
troll
see.
has the same amount of heads.
As we'll see. And they always seem to be related somehow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's weird. Anyway. Halvor took a swallow, and right away he could swing the sword as though it were nothing. Now, he thought, it didn't matter when the troll appeared. All at once, the troll came bursting in. Halvor was behind the door. And the troll yelled,
Oh, I smell the blood of a Christian.
and he stuck his head inside the door.
Huh?
Halvor said,
Well, yeah there, buddy, and soon you'll know why.
and at once he chopped off all the heads. It was so easy. Like, why doesn't the princess do
I
this?
shouldn't have stuck them all through the door.
Like, what's wrong with the princesses? Are they that weak and
Yeah.
feeble? Anyway, the princess was so happy now that she had been saved, and that she danced and sang.
Yay.
But then she came to think of her sisters, and so she said, "Oh, if only my sisters were saved too." Halvor replied,
Oh, well, where are they then?
well, she told him. One of them had been taken away by a troll to a castle 6 leagues away, and the other was held by a troll in a castle 9 leagues away. Or beyond that one. Excuse me. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of leagues.
She said, "But first you must help me get rid of this body." Nah, just lay it there. Well, Halvor was so strong that he had the place straightened up and cleaned in no time. Then he ate
Yeah, all you need is some bleach and a wood chipper out back there.
a bone saw. And then he ate, and then he slept pleasantly and well. And the next morning he started off at dawn. But he knew no peace, and he ran and walked the whole day. When he caught sight of the castle, he became a little frightened again, for it was much finer than the first. But there was not a person to be seen here either. So Halvor went right down into the kitchen, and he didn't stop there, but he went straight on. The second princess cried, "Does, any Christian dare come here? I don't know how long I've been here, but in all this time I have never seen a Christian soul. You must leave at once, bro, for the troll with 6 heads lives here. Go." To which Halvor replies,
Oh, well, there, lady, I wouldn't even go even if he had 6 more heads there.
and so she says, "He'll take you and gobble you up alive, bro. Go." But that didn't matter. Halvor would not leave, for he was not afraid of the troll. But he said that he would like some food and drink, for he was hungry after the journey. So he got as much as he wanted. But once again, the princess begged him to leave. Halvor said,
Oh, well, no there, I'm not going anywhere, because I've done nothing wrong here. I haven't anything to be afraid of.
to which the princess replies, "Well, he won't ask about that, bro, for he will seize you without law or right. But since you won't go, try and swing the sword which the troll uses to fight with."
Okay.
He could not swing the sword, but then the princess told him to take a drink from the bottle which hung beside it. And when he had done so, he could swing it. Hey,
Yeah.
swing
Oh,
it.
it's a good beer in there he's got.
I wonder if that's what Thor uses.
Yeah.
All at once, the troll came, and he was so huge and burly that he had to go sideways to get through the door. When he had gotten his first head in, he shouted,
Ew, I smell the blood of a Christian.
but right away Halvor chopped off the first head, and then all the others.
Ow.
The princess was so happy that she didn't even know which leg to stand on. But then she remembered her sisters, and said that she
But
wished...
then she remembered she could stand on both her legs.
And she said she wished that they could be saved too. Halvor thought it could be managed somehow, and he wanted to be on his way at once. But first he had to help the princess remove the body of the troll, and the next morning he set out on his way. Why do they have to help him remove the troll's body?
Yeah, just in case troll cops come. Yeah.
Murder scene. Don't do
Hey,
it.
have y'all seen
Look at the
another
picture they gave me
troll
of it.
around?
Oh, Jesus. At least the troll's dressed in, like,
Yeah.
what is that?
Troll clothes.
Stockings?
Yeah.
He looks very, I don't know, pip.
Pip, 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 cheerio.
Exactly.
Little troll coming through.
Yeah, so he left the next morning, set on his way. It was far to the castle, and he walked and ran to get there in time. But late in the evening, he saw it in the distance, and it was even finer than the other two. This time, he was not a bit afraid. But went through the kitchen and right in. There sat a princess who was lovelier than any he had ever seen before. Like her sisters, she told him that there had not been a Christian soul in the place as long as she had been there, and she warned him to leave at once if he wanted to save his life. The troll would eat him alive. He had 9 heads after all, she said. Halvor says.
Oh, well, even if he had 9 more, and in addition to those 9, and still another 9 more, that's a total of 27 heads there. Yeah, I wouldn't even leave then.
The princess bade him so pitifully to go, but Halvor insisted on staying and said,
Oh, well, tell him I just said, come at me, bro.
and then she gave him the troll sword and told him to take a drink from the bottle so that he could swing it. Just then, the troll came rushing in with a great din, and he was even bigger and bulkier than the other two, and he also had to crawl sideways to come through the door. He roared.
Here, ugh, 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 here I smell the blood of a Christian man.
Oh, that's a nice roaring troll.
Roar.
But at least, well, excuse me, I went down, one line down. At the same moment, Halvor cut off the first head, and then all the others. But the last one was the toughest of them all, and it was the hardest job Halvor ever had, getting that off. Even though he felt strong enough.
Getting
Just kept
trolls off
whacking
can
it.
be pretty hard.
Yeah, I guess so. Now all the princesses came together at the castle, and they were happier than they had ever been their whole lives. And they were fond of Halvor, and he was fond of them.
Oh.
And he could have the one he liked best. But of all the 3, the youngest was the fondest of him. And I like that young hot Tyler.
It's always so weird they go straight for the youngest.
Mm-hmm. As the days went on, Halvor began to be moody and restless, and the princesses asked what he was brooding over, and if he did not like to be with them. Yes, that he liked, for they had enough to live on, and he was well off in every way. But he was longing for his home, for his parents who were still living and wanted to see them again. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun,
Mama's
dun, dun.
boy.
I need to see my mom.
The princesses told him that it could be easily arranged. They said, "You may go, and you can come back here again, and no harm shall come to you either way, if only you do as we tell you to do now."
Making rules for him.
Exactly. Work for him.
Rule number 1, no strip clubs.
So Halvor promised to do as they told him. So they dressed him like the finest prince and put a ring on his finger of such kind that with it he could wish himself both there and back again. But they warned him not to lose it, and not to mention their names, for then it would be the end of all their happiness, and he would never see them again. Halvor, just don't mention them.
Yeah.
Halvor said,
Oh, well, if only I were home, and home I were.
and just as he wished, it came true. He was standing outside his parents' cottage. Before he knew it, it was at twilight, and when his parents saw the elegant stranger enter, they were quite bewildered and started to bow and curtsy. Halvor asked if he could spend the night there. They said,
Well, that'd be impossible. We have nothing to offer a fine fellow like you. We go up to the big farmhouse. It's not far. You can see the chimney stack from here. There they have everything.
Halvor did not want to do that. He would rather stay with them. but they insisted that he go up to the farm. For there he could get both food and drink, while they had not even a chair to offer him. Halvor said,
Oh, well, no, buddy, I won't go up there before early tomorrow morning. Let me stay here tonight, then we can sit by the hearth. Hearth.
Nice. The old people could not refuse him that, so Halvor sat by the hearth and started raking in the ashes, just as he had done when he had lived at home. They talked about many things, and finally Halvor asked if they had ever had any children. Yes, they had a son, and his name was Halvor, but they didn't know what had become of him or whether he was dead or alive. Then Halvor asked,
Oh, well, couldn't it be me there then?
His mother got up and yelled,
Oh, to be sure, Halvor was so lazy, he would never do anything, and his clothes were always in rags and tatters, so he could never become a fine fellow like you, sir.
And after a while the old woman went over to the hearth and stirred up the fire, and the glow from the embers shone on Halvor's face. She instantly recognized him. She yelled,
Well, God bless us, are you really Halvor?
And the old parents were quite wild with joy and were so happy that they were.
We were about to invite you back for a threesome. I'm so glad we didn't do that.
Me too. He had to tell them everything that had happened to him, and his mother was so fond of him that she wanted to take him up to the big farmhouse at once to show him off to the girls, who had always been so proud and haughty. She led the way, and Halvor went after her. When she got there, she told them that Halvor had returned home, and now they would see for themselves how fine he was. He looks like a prince, she says. The girls, tossing their hair, just laughed. Oh, like a fucking story. He can't be anything but a ragamuffin, as he always was. At that moment, Halvor came in, and the girls were so flustered when they saw him that they left their kirtles by the hearth where they had been sitting and ran out just in their petticoats. When they came back again, they were all so ashamed that they hardly dared look at Halvor, with whom they had always been so grand and haughty before. Halvor says,
Oh, well, you always thought you were so fine and beautiful that there was no one like you. But you should see the eldest princess I freed. Beside her, you look like a shepherd girls, maybe even more like a sheep. And next to the eldest princess is still more beautiful. But the youngest, who is my sweetheart, is more beautiful than the sun and the moon, huh? If only they were here, you could see them for yourself.
Hardly had he said this before they stood there. But now Halvor felt so badly as he remembered what he had promised the princesses. At the farm, they had a feast, and a great fuss was made over the princesses. But they would not stay there. The princesses said to Halvor, We want to go down to your parents and look around for a while. And so he went along. Halvor went along.
So he went along.
On their way, they came to a large lake, and close by was a lovely green slope where the princesses wanted to sit and rest a bit and look out over the water. When they had been sitting there for a while, the youngest princess said, Let me comb your hair for a while, Halvor. Comb it.
Combing it.
Well, Halvor laid his head on her lap, and she started combing it, and it wasn't long before Halvor was asleep. Then she took the ring off his finger and replaced it with another one. And then she said to her sisters, Take my hand. I am taking yours, and let us wish together that we were in Soria Maria Castle.
Peace, bitches.
Pretty much. When Halvor woke up, he realized at once that he had lost the princesses, and he began to wail and lament. He was so disheartened that he could not be consoled. And for all of his parents pleaded with him, he would not stay at home. But he bade them farewell, saying that he might never see them again, for if he didn't find the princesses again, life would not be worth living.
Oh, where's the...
Fitting. Fitting. He had 300 dailers left, so he put them in his pocket and set out on his way. He had walked some distance, and he met a man with a good horse. He wanted to buy it, and so he started bargaining with the man. The man said,
Well, to tell the truth, I hadn't thought of selling it, but if we can agree on a price.
Halvor asked what he wanted for it. He continued to say,
Well, I didn't pay much for it, nor is it worth much either. It's a good horse to ride on, but it's not much of a draught horse. It'll always carry you in your bag if you walk a while and ride a while.
At last they agreed upon a price, and Halvor put his knapsack on the horse. Sorry, I had a burp there. He put his knapsack on the horse and went on his way. Sorry, I lost my line. Sometimes riding and sometimes walking. At dusk he came to a green meadow, and there stood a great tree under which he sat down. He let the horse loose to graze, and took his knapsack off the horse. At daybreak he continued on his way, for he could not rest, and was eager to find the princesses. So he walked and rode the whole day, through a deep forest where there was many grassy clearings which shone very prettily through the trees. Very prettily through the trees.
Very prettily.
He
It
did
was
not-
raining.
He did not know where he was, nor where he was going, but he took no more time to rest than was needed for the horse, and to get a little to eat. When he came to one of the green spots, and he found himself, he took out his knapsack. Wow. He walked and then he rode, and then through the forest, and thought the forest would never come to an end. Wow. Just continuing to say the same thing pretty much for like the whole paragraph. I'm trying to find the princesses. Walk, sleep, sit.
Walk, sleep,
Eat,
sit, eat, sleep,
relax.
walk.
Towards the second evening, Halvor saw a light shining through the trees. He said, or he thought,
Oh, well, if only someone were up here, I could warm myself and get something to eat.
When he came to the light, he saw that it was a miserable little hut, and through the window he saw an old man and an old woman inside. Their hair looked like gray moss, and the woman's nose was so long that she sat by the hearth and used it to rake the coals with. Halvor said,
Oh, well, good evening there,
to,
buddies.
to which the old woman says, Good evening. But what is your errand here? Christian folk haven't been here for over 100 years. Well, Halvor said that he was on his way to Soria Moria Castle, and asked if she could show him the way. She said, No,
No?
but soon the moon will come up, and I will ask him. He should know, for he shines on everything. When the moon rose bright and clear over the treetops, the old woman went outside and shouted, Oh, moon, can you tell me the way to Soria Moria Castle? To which the moon says,
No, I cannot. For the time I showed there, a cloud was in the way.
To which the old woman says to Halvor, But just wait a while longer. Soon the west wind will come by here, and he might know, for he puffs and blows in every direction. Well, have you a horse too? Don't let him stand here by the door to starve. Let the poor creature loose in the fields to fill his belly instead. Why wouldn't you like to swap it? We have a pair of old boots here in which you can cover a distance of 15 miles with every step you take.
Well, damn.
And you can have those boots in exchange for your horse. Then you will be at Soria Moria Castle so much sooner. Sorry.
Nice.
You like my old woman line?
Yeah.
Sweet. What about you guys? Comment on
Let's
that.
see. Sounds like they love it.
All right, I was getting into it. Halvor was quite willing to swap the horses for the boots, and told the old woman that he was so glad to get the horse, that she was ready to dance with joy. She said, Now I can ride to church. I too. But Halvor was still very restless, and he wanted to leave the place at once. But the old woman said there was no hurry. She said, lie down on the bench and sleep a while, for we have no bed for you. Sorry.
Oh.
I shall keep an eye out for the west wind when he comes, though. Yeah, I'll just take a nap. All of a sudden, the west wind came roaring so that the walls shook and then groaned. The old woman ran outside, yelling, "West wind! West wind! Can you tell me the way to Soria Moria Castle? There is someone here who is going there." To which the west wind says,
Yes, I know the way very well. I'm going to dry some clothes for the wedding, which is going to take place there. If he is quick on his feet, he may come a long way with me.
So Halvor rushed out, and the wind continued to say,
You will have to hurry if you want to keep up with me.
And so the west wind took off over the hill, over the hill and dale, and the mountain and valley, and it was all Halvor could do to keep up with him.
Sucks to suck, nerd.
The west wind continued to yell.
Well, I have no time to be with you any longer. First, I have to blow down a strip of fir trees before I come to the bleaching place and dry the clothes. But if you keep to the path running along the edge of the hill, you will come to some girls who are washing clothes, and then you are not far from Soria Moria Castle.
Take a lot of breath out of you.
Loser.
After a while, Halvor came to the girls who were washing, and they asked if he had seen anything of the west wind. He was to come by and dry the clothes for the wedding. Halvor said,
Oh, yeah, I saw him back there earlier. He's over the ridge there, knocking down a strip of fir trees like a lumberjack. He'll be here soon.
Nice. Then he asked them the way to Soria Moria Castle. They showed him the road, and when they reached the castle, the courtyard was so full of people and horses that it was swarming like bees. But Halvor's clothes were now so torn and tattered from following the west wind through the bushes and shrubs that he kept out of sight until dinner time on the day of the wedding. When, as was custom, the guests were to drink to the bride, and the master of ceremonies drank with them all, his turn came to drink with Halvor. Halvor drank the toast and then dropped into the glass the ring the princesses had placed on his finger. When he laid by the water, and bade the master of ceremonies to take the glass to the bride to greet her from it. Then the princesses got up from the table at once, and they yelled, "Who deserves best to get one of us? The one who has freed us, or the groom beside me?" There's only one answer to that. They all felt. Well, it was a comma, so I had to stop, pause. Yeah. They all felt.
They all felt.
And when Halvor heard it, he wasn't long in stepping out of his rags and getting spruced up as a bridegroom. The princesses cried, "Yes, there's the right man," when she caught sight of him.
"There's my little ash lad."
Then she threw out the other one and was wedded to Halvor.
Oh, poor other guy.
And what a weird story.
That was a very weird story.
Thank you.
Some similarities to some other ones.
Yeah, there was like a few.
Yeah. Some troll action going on.
I mean, that's usually Norway's thing, though.
There's a lot of trolls in Norway.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Damn it. It itches.
A lot of trolls.
Don't judge me.
Yeah. Norway and online. That's where you find most of the trolls.
It's so dried. Sorry. It's so dry there.
Yeah.
Makes me all chapped.
It's chapped. Makes me all chapped how dry it is in Norway. Yeah.
Yeah, but we still got one more to go. Yo.
Yeah, the golden bird.
Golden bird.
Bird!
This one's more entertaining to me. Still trolls, though.
Still trolls.
They always got trolls in them. Trolls, witches, and wizards. I think that's their common.
I think that's a pretty common theme, yeah.
And ogres.
And ogres.
Sly foxes, mysterious bears, and beautiful princesses. Country lads turned heroes.
Yeah.
Got a lot of that shit. That's the Norway way.
Ash lad.
Mm-hmm. There's like 16 ash lads in here.
Yeah. a lot of ash lads
Oh,
poking
we'll
at
see.
the fires.
We'll see some more. All right, so second one, the golden bird.
Bird.
There was once a king who had a garden, and in that garden stood an apple tree. And on that tree there grew each year a golden apple. But when the time came to pick it, it was gone. Nobody knew who had taken it, nor what had become of it. But gone it was. This king had 3 sons. So one day he told them that the one who could recover the apple or catch the thief should inherit the kingdom after him, no matter whether he was the eldest or the youngest or the middle one.
Oh, even if you're a goose.
The eldest brother set out first and then sat down under a tree to wait for the thief. At night, as night was drawing near, a golden bird came flying, and it shone from afar. But when the king's son saw the bird and the light, he became so frightened that he dared not stay there, but ran home
Fucking
as
UFOs,
fast
man.
as his legs could carry him. That's probably what he thought. I mean, look at it. It looks like a fucking storm cloud.
Ancient aliens.
In the morning, the apple had disappeared. But now the king's son had regained his courage, and so he started fitting himself out, for he wanted to go away to look for the golden bird. The king equipped him well and spared neither clothes nor money.
Money.
When the king's son had traveled a while, he became hungry, and taking up his knapsack, he sat down by the roadside and started to eat. Just then, a fox came out of the grove of fir trees and sat down and looked at him. The fox said,
"Pray, give me a little food."
To which the king's son says,
"I'll give you some burnt horn. I need all the food for myself, as nobody knows how far or how long I shall have to travel."
To which the fox says,
"Well, that was that."
And then he went back to the woods again. When the prince had eaten and rested, he continued on his way. After a while, he came to a big city, and in that city there was an inn where there was always great merriment and never sorrow. This must be a fine place to stay, thought the prince to himself. So he remained there, and there was so much dancing and drinking and pleasure and fun that he forgot all about the golden bird and the apple and his father and the journey
And everything.
and the whole kingdom.
I'm in love with her.
Gone he was, and gone he stayed. The next year, the middle son was to try and catch the apple thief in the garden. Well, he sat under that tree too, and when the apple was almost ripe, and all at once a golden bird came one night, shining like the sun. But the boy became so frightened that he took to his heels and ran home as fast as he could. The following morning the apple was gone, but by now the king's son had regained his courage, and wanted to set out to see if he could find the bird. So he started fitting himself out, and the king equipped him well, and spared neither clothes nor money. Sounds familiar.
Giving you
Tweedledee,
all Gucci
Tweedledum.
armor.
Louis Vuitton.
Just decked out. Louis Vuitton handbag with all of his gear in it.
But the same thing happened to him as his eldest brother. When he had traveled a while, he became hungry, and taking up his knapsack, he sat down to have lunch by the side of the road. Then a fox came out of a grove of fir trees and sat down to watch. The fox said,
"Pray, give me a little food."
to which the second king's son says,
"Well, I'll give you a burnt horn. I will. Nobody knows how far or how long I shall have to travel. So I need all the food for myself."
And the fox said,
"Well, that was that."
and then he went back to the woods again.
Toodaloo.
After the king's son had eaten and rested a while, he continued on his way again. And after a while he came to the same city and the same inn where it was always merriment and never sorrow. And he
Just
too,
all merriment.
and never sorrow. And he too thought it was a good place to stay. And the first one he had met was his brother. And so he stayed there. His brother had feasted and drunk so much that he hardly had any clothes left on his back. But now they began all over again. Woo woo!
Yeah.
And there was much dancing and drinking and pleasure
Pleasure.
and fun that the second brother also forgot about the bird, the apple, his father, the journey, and the whole kingdom. Gone he was, and gone he stayed. He too.
Yep. Party time.
When it was getting on for the time for the golden apple to be ripe again, the youngest prince was to go out to the garden and watch the apple thief. He took with him a friend to help him in the tree, and a keg of ale and pack of cards to while away the time and keep them awake. All of a sudden there came a light that shone like the sun, and they could see every feather on the bird while it was still far away. The king's son started climbing up into the tree, and just as the bird snatched the golden apple, he tried to grab it. But all he got was one of its tail feathers.
Caca!
So he went into the chamber where the king laid sleeping, and when he came in with the feather, the room was as bright as the clearest day. Damn, so don't need to be attached to that fucking bird. It's not radioactive. I was thinking radioactive, I'm not going to lie. Even though I don't think they've ever had a nuclear problem.
Nuclear bird!
Close enough to Chernobyl.
Yeah, you never know.
So he, too, wanted to go forth into the wide, wide world and try to find out something about his... First of all, he wanted to find out something about his brothers, and then, two, he wanted to capture the bird. For he had been so near that he had left a mark on it and got a feather from its tail, he said. Well, the king pondered for a long time as to whether he should let him go, for it wasn't likely that he, who was the youngest, would fare better than the two eldest. Isn't that how it always goes, though? So the two eldest, who were wiser in ways of the world, and the king feared that he too would be lost. But the youngest son pleaded so earnestly that at last he was allowed to go. So he fitted himself out, and the king equipped him with clothing and money, and then he set off on his way.
I think he spared some expense this time.
Yeah.
I am broke from sending your two brothers out, so... Yeah.
Make sure this one counts, bitch.
Yeah.
When he had traveled a bit, he became hungry, and taking up his knapsack, he sat down to have something to eat. And just as he was doing this, a fox came out of the grove of fir trees and sat down to watch. The fox said,
"Oh, pray, give me a little bit of your food."
To which the prince says,
"I may well need all I have for myself, for I don't know how long I shall have to travel. But I have so much that I can at least give you a little."
When the fox had a piece of meat to chew on, he asked the king's son where he was going. And well, that he told him. The fox continues to say,
"If you will listen to me, I will help you, and luck will be with you."
So the prince promised, and then they went along together. They traveled for some time until they came to a city and the inn, where there was always joy and never sorrow. The fox says,
"I'm afraid I shall have to stay away from here, for the dogs are so troublesome."
And then he told the prince where his brothers were and what they were doing, and continued to say,
"And if you go in there, you will never come any further."
So the prince promised and gave him his hand on it. No, gave him his hand on it. That he would not go inside. And then each one went on his own way. When the prince came to the inn and heard the music and merriment, he had to go in. No questions about that. And when he met his brothers, they were in such carryings that he forgot about the fox and the journey and the golden bird and his father as well. But when he had been there a while, the fox came, and he had ventured into the city after all, and opened the door a crack and winked at the prince.
"Hi."
Wink.
Me.
And he said that now they must be on their way. So the king's son came to his senses again, and then they set out. When they traveled for a while, they saw a huge mountain in the distance, and the fox said,
300 miles beyond that mountain is a gilded linden tree with leaves of gold, and in that linden tree sits the golden bird from which the feather comes from."
There they traveled together. As the king's son was about to go over and catch the bird, the fox gave him some pretty feathers, which he was to wave and lure the bird down, so it would come flying and perch on his hand. But the fox warned him not to touch the linden tree, for a big troll owned it, and if he even touched it, even the smallest twig, the troll would come and kill him on the spot. No.
Troll violence.
No, the king's son certainly would not touch it, he said. But when the bird was perched on his hands, he felt that he had to have one twig from the linen tree. He couldn't help himself. It was so bright and so fine. So he took a tiny one, just a little one.
Just a little one. Just a little guy.
But at that same moment, the troll came out and roared.
Oh, who's stealing my linden tree and my bird?
He was so angry that sparks flew from his eyes. The prince says,
A thief thinks that every man steals, but only the one who doesn't steal cleverly enough is hanged.
The troll said it made no difference and wanted to kill him. But the king's son pleaded that his life should be spared. So the troll said,
Well, if you bring back the horse which my nearest neighbor stole from me, I will spare your life.
So the king's son asks,
But where will I find him?
to which the troll says,
He lives 300 miles beyond that mountain, which is blue on the horizon.
So the king's son promised to do his best, but when he came to the fox, he was far from pleased. The fox said,
Now you've gotten us into a bad mess. If only you had listened to me, we would have been on our way home by now.
They had set out on their way again, and since it was a matter of life and death, the king's son had promised. And after a while, they came to the stable where the prince was to find the horse. But when he was going to take the horse, the fox said,
When you get inside the stable, you will see many bridles, both of silver and gold, hanging on the wall. But you must not touch them, for then the troll will come and slay you on the spot. You must only take the ugliest and most worn-out horse in there.
One. You don't want, no, not the horse, just...
Oh, just the most worn-out brittle.
Yep.
Yeah, leave the horse.
It doesn't matter the horse.
Fox mistakes.
When the king's son promised to do as he was told... the king's son promised to do as he was told. But when he got inside the stable, he thought it was downright unreasonable. For there were plenty of fine ones, and so he took the shiniest one he could find. And it was bright as gold. But at that very moment, the troll came out, and he was so angry that sparks flew. He shrieked,
Who's stealing my horse and bridle?
to which the king's son says,
A thief thinks every man steals, but only the one who doesn't steal cleverly enough is hanged.
The troll says,
Just the same, I'm going to kill you on the spot, so don't move from that spot.
But the king's son thought his life should be spared, and the troll said,
Well, if you can bring back the lovely maiden from my nearest neighbor who has stolen her from me, I shall spare your life.
To which the king's son says,
Where does he live then?
To which the troll says,
Oh, he lives 300 miles on the back of that big mountain which looks like blue on the horizon.
Well, the king's son promised to bring back the maiden. And then he was allowed to go and got away with his life. But now he came outside and the fox wasn't very happy, as you might know. The fox says,
Now you've gotten us into a terrible mess again. If only you had listened to me, we could have been on the way home long ago. Now I have a good mind not to stay with you any longer. Ha!
But the young prince pleaded so earnestly and promised to do everything the fox told him to, if only he would stay with him. At last, the fox gave in, and they became friends and were on good terms again.
Oh.
And so they set out on the way again. And after a while, they came to where the lovely maiden was. The fox says,
Well, you have promised well enough, but I dare not let you go in to the troll. All the same, this time I shall go in myself.
And so he went in, and after a little while he came out again with the maiden, and then they traveled back the very same way that they had come. Then they came to a troll who had the horse. They took both the horse and the shiniest bridle, and when they came to the troll who had the linden tree and the bird, they took both the linden and the bird and started for home. I guess the trolls were asleep.
I guess so. They just robbed them all.
They did. When they had traveled for a while, they came to a field of rye. And then the fox said,
I hear a rumbling sound. Now you'll have to travel alone. I'm going to stay here for a while.
And then he braided himself a garment of rye straw and put it on, and he looked almost like someone standing there perching. All at once, 3 trolls came rushing up, thinking that they would catch up with them again. They yelled,
Or have you seen anyone go by with a lovely maiden and a horse with a golden bridle and a golden bird and a gilded linden tree?
oh, they shrieked to the fox who stood there perching.
Perch.
The fox says,
Yes, I've heard from my grandmother's grandmother that such a party passed this way. But that was in the good old times when my grandmother's grandmother baked cakes and sold them for 2 for a penny and gave back the penny in the bargain.
At this story, all the trolls burst into a fit of laughter. They said to each other, holding on to one another,
If we've been asleep that long, we might as well turn right back around and go back to sleep again.
And then they went back the same way. So easy.
So easy.
Wow. The fox set out after the king's son. But when they came to the city with the inn and the brothers, the fox said,
I don't dare go through that city for fear of the dogs. I must go my own way around, but now you must take good care so your brothers don't get a hold of you.
But when the king's son came into the city, he thought it would be a shame not to see his brothers and have a few words with them. Give him a few little licks of the old stick.
Stick licks.
Anyway. And so he stopped there for a little while. But when the brothers saw him, and they came out and took away from him the maiden, the horse, and the bird, and the linen tree. And they put him in a barrel and threw him into the sea.
Jesus, that's not very brotherly.
No, this is why it's not. I don't know, some siblings really suck.
Yeah.
And
Let's
then
all go back together, bros. I came back to save you. Other idea, we murder you?
And then they set off with the maiden and the horse and the bird and the linen tree and everything and went home to the king's court. But the maiden would not talk and became pale and downhearted. The horse became so thin that it could hardly stand on its legs. And the golden bird sat silent and no longer shone.
Bird.
And the linden tree withered away.
Bird.
In the meantime, the fox prowled about on the outskirts of the city and waited for the king's son and the lovely maiden wondering what had become of them. He wandered hither and yon, waiting and longing. And at last he came down to the shore. And when he caught sight of the barrel floating in the water, he shouted,
Are you drifting there, you empty barrel?
To which the king's son says,
Oh, it's me.
Sorry, it's just so funny. Oh, it's me. It's me. I'm right here.
I'm right here.
The fox started swimming out into the water as fast as he could, caught hold of the barrel, and dragged it ashore. Then he gnawed at the hoops, and when he had pulled them off the barrel, he said to the king's son,
Kick and stretch.
So the king's son kicked and pounded and stretched until each stave gave way, and he hopped out of the barrel. Ba-ba!
Ba-ba-ba!
Then they went to the king's court together, and when they arrived, the maiden became beautiful again and started to talk. The horse became so fat and pretty that each hair glistened, and the bird shone and sang, and the linen tree bloomed and its leaves sparkled again. And the maiden shouted,
There he is. There's the one who saved me. Come gaze upon my beautiful visage.
Did you bring the Virginia Slims?
Did you bring me any cigarettes like I asked for?
I tried to mimic you.
Yeah.
You like that?
Yeah.
They put the linen tree into the garden, and the youngest son was to have the princess. For a princess she was.
Of course I'm a princess. Don't I
Look
sound
at
like
me.
I'm royalty? Look
Yeah.
at me.
But the 2 eldest brothers were clapped in spike barrels and rolled off a steep cliff, thanks to their father.
Oh, wow. I should have never left the place of pleasure.
Should have stayed there, that's right.
Yeah.
Then they made ready for a wedding, but first the fox begged the king's son to lay him on a chopping block and cut his head off. And for all the
Kill me
king's
now.
and for all the king's sons tried to get out of it, it was to no avail. He had to do it.
I want to die.
But at that very moment he chopped, the fox turned into a handsome prince. and proved to be the brother of the princess that they had saved from the troll.
Now you're my brother-in-law.
So the wedding was held, and it was like so grand and like so fine, and they like fucking celebrated, and the people were like still fucking talking about it.
Still, people are still talking about it.
The end.
Onto this podcast.
Way better than Soria Maria.
Soria Maria.
Like there was no real happy ending.
Don't want to be.
Don't want to be.
Yeah, I hope you
y'all
folks
like
enjoyed this. Some Norwegian Folktales. Our source for today's episode was the book Norwegian Folktales, selected from the collection of Peter Christian Abjornson and Jorgen Moe.
Woo woo!
Yeah.
Good shit, guys.
Good shit.
There's like 15 stories in here, but I mean, it's
There
worth
is.
it.
Yeah.
Fucking 15 weird ass stories.
15 stories.
All right, let me know what y'all think.
Yeah, let us know what you
Like,
think.
comment.
Subscribe.
Hit that notification bell.
If that's a thing, do it.
Sometimes it works.
Sometimes it works.
Mine's horrible. I don't know how to fix
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah. Yeah, spell out our name in the snow.
Pee in it.
Pee in it.
Only in the backyard, and only if you are completely blocked off. Otherwise, it's considered public indecency.
Okay, Judge Judy.
I'm just saying.
All right. All right.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.